Okay. So this is lecture 3 for the plane and spherical trigonometry sessions. So in this presentation, we are going to discuss the trigonometric function for the acute angle. So last time for the lesson 2, we discussed trigonometric function of a general angle. So this time we're going to focus on triangle and the acute angle. So as you can see here on the illustration, so we have triangle A, B, and C. So the triangle with vertices, so we have the vertex A, vertex B, and vertex C. I cannot see the pen. Excuse me lang. Okay, here. So with respect to angle A, we have here angle A. So the opposite of angle A is side small. We indicate that as small letter A. So pag dito si A, yung if this is the angle, let's say this is the angle A, theta. So opposite to that angle or opposite to this vertex A, we denote this as small letter A. So it implies that the opposite of the angle in which vertex A is located is a side called A. So that is small letter A. We denote this one. So always remember that. So the same goes with B. We have the vertex B at the top. So you have a vertex B at the top. So if we have angle at B, so opposite to that angle is a side. So the opposite to that side of angle B is small letter B. We indicate line C to A as opposite to the angle located in B. So similar to C, since C is a right angle, so we assume that this figure is a right triangle. So we have the right angle. So opposite to capital letter C or the vertex C is the opposite to that is the line small letter C as running from A to B. So we denote usually in trigonometry in other books in other references. So side C will always be called the hypotenuse. So hypotenuse side is a side opposite to the right angle. So this angle here is 90 degrees. Okay, so take note that opposite to the angle A is a small letter A, and opposite to B is a small letter D, the sides, and opposite to the 90 degrees is the hypotenuse, which is we denote this as small letter C. Okay, let's now move. The trigonometric function we have if we draw a right triangle in the plane. So this is the coordinate plane. If we do a right triangle, so let's say this is a right triangle in which the initial side of the right triangle is running from A to C. So yung ating A to C, dito magsisimula yung ating initial na angle. So from here to this line here. So it's placed in a coordinate system so that angle A is the standard position. When we say standard position from the last lecture or from the lecture 2, pag sinabi natin standard position, that is an angle that is measured coming from the x positive line or the angle that starts in this positive axis. So the point on B, we have point B. So we can locate, for example, let's write point B on the top. So point B now is the location where, since opposite ng C is small letter C, so we write small letter C here. So and B to C B, so ang magiging coordinate na ngayon ni B is with respect to sa kanyang X and Y. So how are we going to determine the coordinates of B? So by simply the proportion that we use in the last slide, we have, since B is located, yung x-coordinate ng B, ano yung x-coordinate ng B? So we have here, the x-coordinate to B is equivalent to, anong opposite of the angle B? That is, di ba, ang opposite ni angle B is a side which we denote as small letter B. So if this is the angle here, so this is A, since this is angle, opposite side niya is A. So ito yung magiging value ng Y. So this is the projected value ng B in y-axis that is equivalent to A. So here is A. So in the along the x-axis, so opposite ng B is a line called small letter B. So if you determine the coordinates of B, we just use the x and the y, which is x is equals to B and y is equal to A. So I hope this is clear. So this is the basic concept. So you just draw a right triangle, then you assign C as the vertex. So but it depends on the designation of letter. But in general sense, we denote AB, triangle ABC as C as the hypotenuse. Okay? So then the trigonometric function of the angle A. So for the angle A, so we have 6 trigonometric function if we focus only on angle A. So let's focus only on angle A. So if we focus on angle A, it is defined as the triangle function. So since it is triangle, we can say that sine of A is equals to A over C. Since ang sine is, diba, we denote sine as so. So SOH, where sine of the angle is equal to the opposite over hypotenuse. So if we look into illustration, si sine A, asan si A? Dito si A. So ang opposite ni A is letter A, this one. So we write A. And the hypotenuse is letter C. So that is opposite over hypotenuse. Next, we're going to the cosine A. So, kung beso katawa, si cosine ay COH. So, which means cosine of the angle, that is ka. Sorry. So that is the cosine of the angle equals to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Now, if we look at the angle A, what is the adjacent side of angle A? So what do you think is the side opposite to angle A? Opposite is A. How about the adjacent? What is the adjacent of angle A? You can write it in the chat box. What is the adjacent of the angle A? What is the line adjacent to A? So we have double, yes, so correct. So we have B. So adjacent of A is B over C. So we denote as B over C, that is adjacent side over hypotenuse. So the same goes with the tangent. Since we discussed that tangent equals to opposite over adjacent, so we focus on A again. So opposite of A is A, and adjacent to A, angle A is B. So we have A over B, that is now the equivalent to the tangent of A. So same goes with the cotangent, the secant, and cosecant, which is reciprocal to this value that we determine here in this illustration. Okay? So madali lang. So how are we going to determine the distance of C? So we can determine the distance of C by, if we have the values of B and C, we can use the distance formula. We have C equals to A squared plus B squared. Okay. Now, let's have here another. So the acute angle AB of the right triangle ABC. So we have the acute angle. This is one acute angle here. We have another acute angle. Diba? Since what on a triangle we have 180 degrees. Since yung isang 90 degrees is nakukonsume na in a right triangle, so there is a remaining 90 degrees. So the 90 degrees is divided into angle A and angle B. So we have angle A plus angle B, which is equivalent to a 90 degrees for a right triangle. Okay? So for B naman, so kanina focus natin is A. So let's focus kay B. So what if andito kita kay B? So sin ni B, ano yung opposite ni B? So we have B here, opposite B over C. So this is correct. Another, si cosine of B. Si cosine of B equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent ng angle B natin is letter A. So di ba adjacent yung katabi niya. So A. So over hypotenuse, so that is A over C. So for the tangent B, that is TOA. So means tangent of the angle opposite over adjacent. So since opposite ni B ay si a small letter B and adjacent niya ay si A, so we have tangent B over A. Okay. So if you so since nakikita niyo yung relationship since 90 plus A plus B equals to 90 degrees. So makita niyo sin ni B is equivalent kay cosine ni A. Same goes sa yung tangent ni B ay equivalent sa cotangent ni A. Since naka-reciprocal yung ating value. So reciprocal ng tangent ay cotangent and here. Okay? So same with this one, yung cotangent of B, secant of B, and cosecant of B is equivalent to the tangent of A, cosecant of A, and secant of A. So you try to check, you give a values of B and try to input in the calculator if the answer is the same. So you try siguro let A equals to 30 and B equals to 60. Then try to compute if this relationship suffice to this theory. Okay? So that's in any function of an acute angle. We have here, yung function of an acute angle is equal to the corresponding cofunction of the complementary angle. So what do you mean by complementary angle? So these two angle is the sum is equal to 900 or is equal to 90 degrees. Sorry. So when you say complementary, two angles, if you take the sum of two angles, that is equivalent to 90 degrees. Okay. So we have also special triangle. Aside to the right triangle, we have the 30, 45, and 60. So these special angles have trigo function, which is which has an exact value. So I have a tabulated summary of the values for the 30, 45, and 60. So we have here, the sine of 30 is 1/2. Which is, we have also cosine of 30 is square root of 3 over 2. Tangent of 30 is square root of 3 over 3. Cotangent of 30 is square root of 3. Secant of 30 is 2 square root of 3 over 2. And cosecant of 30 is 2. So you try to check if these values are correct. So you can use the calculator. You just simply input the values. You input the sign, then the values, you get the answer. So for the trigo function values, if you are not using a calculator, but anyways, in the board exam, we are definitely using a calculator. So no need to memorize these values. Okay, for the angles that are not special angle, for example, 1, 2, 3 degrees, 5 degrees. So those are just a standard angle. So pag hindi siya special angle, The values of trigonometric functions are required for any application problem. So this angles, if you don't have a calculator, you can use this table in order to compute the values of a function. So there are a lot of references that you can find in which there are complete list of trigonometric function and values. So for in this table that I have here presented is just the values of trigonometric function from 1 degree to until 90. So we have wala tong minutes and seconds, only naka-degrees lang talaga. So for the other, merong mga references na naka-degree, minutes, and seconds, and what is the equivalent value of that degrees. Ito kasi, ano lang siya, yung 1 degree lang, walang seconds, walang nakasunod na minutes. So, parang whole number siya na degrees. Okay? So, do not memorize this one. You can find it in your calculator. So, for those who are not yet familiar using your calculator, since who are not hindi pa masyadong familiar sa basic ng calculator, kung yan na pala nakagamit in 991 ES. So you can use the application. So for those who don't have a hardware or yung calculator mismo, you can use the app. So may app yung Casio. We have the ano ba ito? I have here 991 ES na app. I think pwede maklaroan ka. So I have here 991 ES na application, and you can use it for the meantime. But I would prefer if you use the 991 ES na calculator na pwede gamitin sa board exam para masanayan niyo kamot anuhon pag gamit. So for those who are not yet familiar, now are we going to input the values on your calculator. We use the scientific calculator. So for the trigo function, we can determine the trigo function of a number. So make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. Kailangan naka-degree yan. Merong mga students na nagkakamali yung answer because yung calculator is naka-radian. So dalawang mode yan, either degree or radian, or meron radian. So you use the degree. So I have your illustration. You use the degree. You take note the degree mode of the calculator. Then you enter the number of degrees in angle. For example, 30 degrees. You write, you input the cosine. For example, it's cosine. You click the cosine here and you input 30 degrees. And then press the key for the trigonometric function. For example, is it sine, cosine, tangent, and etc. So, and read the function. So you write, if naka-fraction siya and gusto mo naka-decimal yung answer, you can just press this. You can press this SD. So pwede mo siyang i-press SD para maging decimal form tong sagot. So you can write this one. So this is now the decimal. This is the fractional form of cosine 30 degrees. So this is only for the beginners who are using the scientific calculator. Okay? So how are we going to find the acute angle of a certain angle? So if we are going to use sine A is equals to 0.2651, what is the equivalent of A in angle? So how are we going to compute the value of A? So sine A equals to 0.2651. So in this manner, we are going to compute the inverse function of this value. So we are going to compute the inverse. Kapag sinabing naka-decimal point to and we need to compute the equivalent angle of this value of this trigonometric function. So how are we going to do that using your calculator? So with the calculator in degree, so make sure na naka-degree function yung calculator. Then most of the calculator, you need to press the shift. Here, you can find the shift mode. Then press the trigonometric function that you need to solve. For example, sine, since naka-sine A. So if you need to compute the sine A, after pressing shift, you press the sine, for example. So you press the sine, you press the sine key. Pag shift tapos sine, magiging may -1 na lalabas sa monitor ng calculator. We have here. Then we enter the trigo function, which is 0.2651. So we have here, if you try, nakikita ba? I'm not sure kung nakikita. So you press shift, sign, you input the value of the number, which is 2651. Then the result would be this 15.37894 and so on. So this value is in decimal degrees. That is 15.30, almost approximately equal to 15.38 degrees. So if you want to exactly determine the value of the minutes in seconds, you need to press this, yung naka-degree, minutes and seconds in your calculator. So you input, you click this one, and the resulting is the equivalent of this angle, which is equivalent to 15 degrees, 22 minutes, and 23 seconds. So it's 23. I just rounded up the 22.42 seconds, which is equivalent to 23 degrees. Okay. So this lecture is only 30 minutes for the Zoom. So once the this meeting will be timed out, you need to log in the link. So balik lang ka mo pagsulod ang link. Okay? Alright, question from Ma'am, kay ano may negative? So that is not a negative, that is the inverse sign of a function. Since sine A is equal to 0.2651, sa trigo table, yung 0.2651 is makikita mo sa trigo table. The equivalent of this value, you need to take the inverse of this value. That's why we need to compute the sine inverse. So sa calculator, you just press shift then sign, lalabas na yung inverse function ng value of that angle. So since yung point, which means yung 0.2651 is equivalent to 15 degrees, 22 minutes, and 23 seconds. Okay? Mationg, did I answer your question? Okay na? You can type yes on the chat box. Okay, sige. So again, that is the inverse function. Para makuha na to ang degree value of that trigonometric function, you need to compute the inverse. So sine inverse is just mostly, and kung may daka mo kasyo, naka-shift sign. May da kasi ibang kalkiwan may da na sine inverse. Pero usually, para ito may da naka-inverse na. So you need to take the shift form and then sign. Okay? So yung angle lang yung dapat mag-shift. Hindi yung estudyante ang dapat mag-shift. Okay? So let's move forward. So let's go to the application of this, the basic application of the trigo function. So let's have the first the angle of elevation and angle of depression. So this topic is quite very simple, but for the Genetic Engineering Board exam, I think out of 100 questions, the angle of elevation and angle of depression cost around 30 items during my time when I took the board exam. So most of the mathematics question on the board exam for the GE is more on trigonometry. So algebra yun, siguro algebra mga 5 questions, calculus mga 10, but more or less balik-balik lang ang question. The topic is more on trigonometry, the application of the trigo function on angle of elevation and angle of depression. So don't forget that. Okay, let's start with the angle of elevation in the angle of depression before we go to the application. So when we say angle of elevation, okay, have your illustration. When we see angle of elevation, is the angle from the horizontal up to the line of sight from the observer to an object above. So take note the word above. So when I say elevation, if this is my horizontal, this is the horizontal line of sight. See, the angle of elevation is from this horizontal tapos paigbaw. So the angle that is cast from this horizontal until hay na ko makakita dito haigbaw, that is the angle of elevation. So I have your illustration. So for example, this is the line of sight. Ito na yellow na arrow is ang itong ginkikita mo mga haigbaw. And this one is your horizontal. So yung horizontal line. So the angle that is cast from that angle, which is coming from, so ang i-measure mo ni angle which is always a counterclockwise, is mean counterclockwise, that is from here to here, that is a counterclockwise, diba? Counterclockwise. So that is angle of depression. So from the definition you can see on the illustration is the angle from the horizontal. Yung ating initial point is the horizontal, and yung ating terminal point is yung ating object na titingnan o yung line of sight. So, how about si angle of depression? So, syempre, opposite lang siya. Si angle of depression, this is the angle from the horizontal. Syempre, meron din siyang horizontal. Down from the line of sight, from the object, from the observer to an object below. So, opposite siya. Si angle of elevation is the above, and the angle of depression ay si below. So, below siya. So, in this illustration, makikita nyo sa illustration natin, we have here, so if this is the horizontal, kung or still may horizontal din yung sa taas, and then he look up to the person at the bottom, diba? If this is your horizontal, that is angle of elevation up to the top. Opposite to that, this is your horizontal to the bottom, that is angle of depression. So sa angle of depression naman, yung terminal, yung initial point natin is also the horizontal. Tapos, yung ating terminal is the line of sight. So, ang opposite lang, para mas madali siyang intindihin, yung angle of elevation is pabigbaw, and angle of depression is pababa. Okay? Any question before we proceed to the sample problem? You can type yes or no on the chat box. Okay, if there's none, we can proceed to the sample problem. So let's try this very basic sample problem. So this problem was on the, I think it's 2017 board exam for the GE. So very basic lang yung question. We have here, a support um, is anchored 12 meters up from the base of a flagpole, and a wire makes a 15 degrees angle with the ground. How long is the wire? So before you start, um, before ka mo mag-decide on what trigo function are we going to use? Are we going to use the sine, the cosine, the tangent, or the other reciprocal? So just illustrate first the problem. Mas madali siyang isolve kung ma-illustrate na, tandaan. So let's go back to the problem. A support wire is anchored 12 meters up from the base of the flagpole. So may flagpole. Tapos, ino nga flagpole may da naka-anchored na 12 meters no wire. Ano yun nga 12 meters? That is the height of the wire from the base of the flagpole. So from the flagpole na base, let's say this is the base. From here, sa base niya, 12 meters. That is now the location where nakahigot na naton wire. So let's say this one. So that is the location, that is 12 meters, that is the length. We are about to end this session. So please log in again to the link since 30 minutes lang ini na recording. Since diri ako naka-premium. You may log in again. So pwede kita mag-leave then log in again the link since 30 minutes lang. And we are going to continue solving this problem. Okay?